Picture this. You turn the key, the engine starts, but it feels tired. The acceleration is weak, the idle is rough, and fuel economy is getting worse every week. No warning lights, no obvious breakdown, just a slow decline that most drivers ignore until it turns into an expensive problem. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most engines don't suddenly fail. They wear down quietly because of small things drivers overlook. And the part that surprises people is this: in many cases, you can bring that performance back without tearing the engine apart or spending a fortune. Most drivers assume once an engine feels old, that's it. It's just age. But that assumption can cost you money. Now, to be fair, engines do wear over time. You're not going to turn a high-mileage engine into a brand new one overnight. But that's not the same thing as saying you can't dramatically improve how it runs. And this is where the story gets interesting. If you like simple car advice without the shop upsell, stick around, because this is one of those topics that can actually save you money. The first thing most people never think about is fuel system buildup. Over time, deposits form inside the fuel injectors. These are the parts that spray fuel into the engine. When they're dirty, the spray pattern gets uneven. Instead of a fine mist, you get a weak or distorted spray. That means poor combustion, less power, and more fuel wasted. And here's the part people miss: you won't always get a warning light for this. The car just feels slower, a bit rougher, a bit less responsive. A simple, high-quality fuel system cleaner used correctly can make a noticeable difference. Not magic, but real improvement, especially if the car has been running on low-quality fuel or hasn't been maintained regularly. And the next problem is something even more common: dirty air intake components. Your engine needs clean air just as much as it needs fuel. But over time, the throttle body and air intake can get coated with carbon buildup. That restricts airflow. Less air means weaker combustion. Most drivers never clean the throttle body. They don't even know it exists. But when it gets dirty, you'll feel it. Sluggish throttle response, unstable idle, sometimes even stalling in extreme cases. Cleaning it isn't complicated, but it has to be done properly. And when it is, the difference can feel immediate. Now here's where things start getting ignored the most: old spark plugs. Spark plugs are responsible for igniting the fuel-air mixture. If they're worn out, the spark becomes weak or inconsistent. That leads to misfires, rough running, and poor fuel economy. The scary part is, spark plugs can degrade slowly, so you don't notice a sudden problem. You just get used to worse performance. Replacing them at the right interval is one of the simplest ways to make an engine feel alive again. But a lot of drivers push them way past their lifespan. And this next part matters even if your engine feels okay: engine oil. Not just changing it, but using the right type and keeping it clean. Old or low-quality oil increases friction inside the engine. That means more wear, less efficiency, and reduced performance. Most people think oil is just about lubrication. But it also plays a role in cooling, cleaning, and protecting engine components. If your oil is overdue, your engine is working harder than it should. And over time, that adds up. Now let's talk about something people almost never check: the mass airflow sensor. This sensor measures how much air is entering the engine. The car uses this data to calculate how much fuel to inject. If the sensor is dirty or faulty, the entire air-fuel balance gets messed up. Too much fuel, too little fuel, or inconsistent delivery, all of that affects performance. Cleaning a mass airflow sensor is simple, but it has to be done carefully with the right cleaner. And when it's working properly, the engine runs smoother and more efficiently. And this is where a car that drives fine can still be underperforming. Now here's another overlooked issue: clogged fuel filters. Over time, fuel filters trap dirt and debris. That's their job. But eventually they get restricted. That limits fuel flow to the engine. Less fuel under load means less power. It can feel like the engine is struggling, especially when accelerating or going uphill. Some cars have long-life filters, but that doesn't mean they last forever. And when they start clogging, performance drops quietly. If you've ever bought a used car, this next part is critical: poor maintenance history. You don't always know what the previous owner skipped. Maybe oil changes were delayed. Maybe cheap parts were used. Maybe basic services were ignored. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable. You could be dealing with years of neglect without realizing it. That doesn't mean the engine is ruined. But it does mean you may need to catch up on maintenance before expecting it to run smoothly. And the bigger problem is what most drivers never check: a simple airflow restrictions like a dirty air filter. If the engine can't breathe properly, performance drops. It's that simple. An air filter is cheap, easy to replace, but people ignore it for years. Now let's pause for a second and make this practical. If you actually want your engine to run better, here's what you should be thinking about. Check your service history. If you don't have one, assume basic maintenance is overdue. Replace old spark plugs if they haven't been changed on time. Use a quality fuel system cleaner occasionally, not constantly, and not cheap junk. Inspect and clean the throttle body and mass airflow sensor if needed. Make sure your engine oil is fresh and the correct type. Check or replace the air filter. And if something feels off, don't ignore it just because the car still moves. If you've ever dealt with rough idle, poor mileage, or a car that just feels off, I'd actually like to know what you found when you checked it. A lot of people discover small issues that were quietly affecting performance for years. And here's the part most people need to hear clearly. Doing these things won't turn a worn-out engine into a brand new one. That's not realistic. But it can make a huge difference in how the engine runs, how it feels, and how long it lasts. And this is exactly why maintenance matters more than people think. Because engines don't just fail, they fade. Slowly, quietly, until one day the repair bill forces you to pay attention. Or you catch it early, fix the basics, and keep the car running strong. That's the difference. If you want more videos like this, where you actually understand what's happening under the hood without the usual confusion or upselling, subscribe. Because the goal here is simple. Help you avoid problems early, save money, and keep your car running the way it should, before small issues turn into big ones.